December 20th, 1722, inside the Changchun Garden in Beijing, Emperor Kangxi takes his final breath. With his passing, the curtain finally falls on one of Qing dynasty's darkest and most infamous struggle of power, the Nine Princes' War. But even as the old emperor's eyes close forever, a single, urgent question grips the palace. Who will sit next on the dragon throne? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. Today we're exploring the complex and sometimes brutal world of Qing's imperial succession. We'll explore how succession evolved through the Qing dynasty, the Nine Princes' War, and how Empress Dowager Cixi ultimately bent the succession rules in the Qing dynasty's final years. Throughout Chinese history, stable succession meant peace and prosperity. Smooth transitions suggest heaven's approval, while succession conflicts often led to chaos, rebellion, and even dynastic collapse. For centuries, Han Chinese dynasties, guided by Confucian ideals, formally embraced Di Zhangzi Ji Chenzhi. Under this principle, the emperor's eldest son, born to the empress, would ideally inherit the throne, ensuring a stable and undisputed succession. Despite this formal preference, actual practice often diverged significantly, with successions often being challenged due to various political factors and personal ambitions, leading to many historical stories for another time. In contrast, the early Manchus, founders of the Qing dynasty, followed a different approach, rooted in their tribal heritage. Rather than automatically choosing the eldest son, succession depended on merit, capability, and consensus among leading clan members. This method aimed at placing the most qualified leader on the throne, but often sparked internal competition. This traditional Manchu system quickly revealed its instability in early Qing history. When the dynasty's founder, Nu'er Hachi, died, his sons competed fiercely before Huang Taiji finally took power. However, Huang Taiji's sudden death in 1643 without naming a clear heir led to an even bigger crisis. His eldest son, Hao Ge, and his powerful brother, Duo Ergun, each had strong supporters at court. Eventually, a compromise placed Huang Taiji's young son, Fu Ling, on the throne as the Shunzhi emperor, with Duo Ergun seizing power behind the scenes. Even Shunzhi's succession became problematic. Dying from smallpox in 1661, he quickly chose his third son, Xuanye, the future Kangxi emperor, partly because the boy had survived smallpox himself. Again, this choice was based more on urgent circumstances than established tradition, requiring yet another regency. These early Qing experiences clearly illustrate the flaws of traditional Manchu succession methods, marked by competition, instability, and powerful regencies. Determined not to repeat these early succession issues, Emperor Kangxi decided to adopt a more stable, Confucian-inspired approach, governing a vast empire largely populated by Han Chinese. Kangxi believed in the need for a clear succession plan that would align with the traditions of his subjects and solidify the legitimacy of Qing rule. To demonstrate his respect to the standards of his Han Chinese citizens and to prevent future conflicts among his sons, he boldly designated his young second son, Yingren, as crown prince in 1675 CE. As the oldest surviving son of Kangxi's first empress, Yingren perfectly fit this traditional Han Chinese model of legitimacy. This unprecedented move would make Yingren the only formally designated crown prince of the entire Qing dynasty. Kangxi hoped this early and clear designation would prevent future conflicts among his sons. But instead of bringing stability, this experiment became the trigger of one of the Qing dynasty's most chaotic succession events. The Nine Princes' War, or Zhouzi Duodi, was not a military conflict, but a prolonged and intense political struggle among Emperor Kangxi's sons over the imperial succession. Although Emperor Kangxi fathered many children, with some records noting up to 24 adult sons, only 9 had the necessary age, influence, ambition, and political support to become serious contenders. These 9 princes became central to the succession battle, thus giving the conflict its famous name. The key participants included the eldest prince Yingti, the second prince, and crown prince Yingren, the third prince Yingzhi. the fourth prince, Ying Zhen, the eighth prince, Ying Si, the ninth prince, Ying Tang, the 10th prince, Ying E, the 13th prince, Ying Xiang, and the 14th prince, Ying Zhen. So how did things get this heated? Well, Kangxi had been emperor for 61 years. Decades of waiting around, wondering when dad was going to finally step down, his sons weren't exactly getting younger. And as they hit middle age, impatience grew. They spent years quietly building alliances, whispering behind palace doors, and setting up factions. Decades earlier, Kangxi thought he'd solve this whole mess by picking his second son, Yingren, as crown prince. At first, this seemed pretty smart. The second prince was young, capable, and born to Kangxi's empress, checking all the right boxes to secure a smooth succession. But as years went by, cracks started to show. Things got especially awkward in 1703 when Kangxi suddenly executed Su Ertu on the grounds of corruption and treason. Su Ertu was the second prince's powerful granduncle and basically his main political supporter. The second prince was devastated, and his relationship with his father went quickly downhill. As the second prince got older, he started turning into, well, a kind of a nightmare. Court records from that time painted him in the worst possible light: arrogant, reckless, violent, decadent. He was even accused of tyrannizing the masses. Basically, the second prince became the one son you absolutely would not want running the entire empire. Things finally exploded in autumn 1708 during an imperial hunting trip to Mulan. Picture this: late at night, Kangxi, already stressed out by all the rumors flying around, suddenly catches his crown prince sneaking around near his tent in the dark. Was Yingren impatient, trying to confront his aging father? Or was he plotting something much worse? Nobody knew for sure, but Kangxi took it very badly. This event was so alarming that it was officially documented as the tent prying incident. On September 25, 1708, from a temporary palace at Buling Hasutai, Kangxi released a furious edict, publicly shaming the crown prince, accusing him of failing to follow ancestral virtue, defying imperial instructions, mistreating the people, and living a shameless life. After more than 30 years of raising the second prince as his heir, Kangxi stripped him of the crown prince title. And just like that, the throne was up for grabs. With the crown prince removed, the other princes finally saw their chance. First up was the eldest prince, Ying Ti. Sick of living in his younger brother's shadows, he wasted no time. He coldly suggested to his father that the second prince be executed, shocking the emperor. Feeling that his own chances were slim, as Kangxi had never favored him, the eldest prince then tried to push forward the charismatic eighth prince, Ying Si, claiming that the soothsayer predicted that the eighth prince was destined for great honor. Unfortunately, his play backfired, and Kangxi was disgusted and furious. Then the drama doubled down. Just a few months later, the third prince, Ying Zhi, popped out of nowhere to accuse the eldest prince of witchcraft, claiming he used dark sorcery against the former crown prince. Appalled by the accusations, Kangxi immediately had the eldest prince imprisoned, stripped of all his titles, and permanently removed from the succession contention. Meanwhile, the eighth prince wasn't slowing down. He quickly gathered a powerful following, including the ninth prince, Ying Tang, and the 10th prince, Ying E. Unfortunately, his supporters weren't subtle, with high-ranking officials openly calling for the eighth prince to be named the next crown prince. This backfired spectacularly. Kangxi was already suspicious of the loyalty of his sons, and this open support of the eighth prince felt like a power grab. Kangxi became publicly enraged, declaring, "The push to make Ying Si the crown prince is appalling and fills me with absolute rage." He condemned their obvious ambition and even briefly imprisoned Ying Si himself for interrogation. Let's just say things weren't looking so great for the eighth prince now. The court was in chaos, with the crown prince deposed, the eldest prince disgraced, and the eighth prince now under a dark cloud of suspicion. The path to succession became even more unclear. With the court practically in flames, Kangxi did something unexpected. In March 1709, he reinstated the second prince as the crown prince. Maybe he hoped his son learned his lesson. Maybe it was an attempt to calm the chaos. Or maybe it was just an exhausted father's wishful thinking. But nope, nothing changed. By late 1711, whispers surfaced again. The second prince, still reckless and arrogant, was accused of forming disruptive alliances with powerful ministers. For Kangxi, it was the last straw. In September 1712, the emperor issued another edict. The second prince was out, this time for good. Kangxi placed him under lifelong house arrest, and the position of crown prince was empty once again. So here we are, with 6 contenders remaining. But here's the thing. Emperor Kangxi may be exhausted from all this drama, or just wary of picking another disappointing heir, didn't name anyone new. For 10 whole years, the Dragon Throne had no official successor. This created a power vacuum that the remaining princes saw as their chance. They began maneuvering, plotting, scheming. But not every prince chose to compete further. The third prince, Ying Zhi, decided that he'd already seen enough chaos. After watching the eldest prince get tossed aside, maybe he figured the throne just wasn't worth the trouble. Or maybe he realized he wasn't going to win anyway. Either way, he quietly stepped back from the fray. Instead, the third prince threw himself into scholarly projects, such as the famous compilation of the huge imperial encyclopedia called 古今图书集成. The third prince kept his head down and largely removed himself from the direct line of fire. With the real contenders narrowed down, 2 major factions emerged. First, we have the faction that previously supported the 8th prince, which included the 9th prince and the 10th prince. They knew the 8th prince wasn't getting the throne at this point, so they quickly switched gears, rallying behind a new rising star, the 14th prince, Ying Zhen. The 14th prince wasn't just popular, he was also a general trusted by Kangxi himself. By 1718, Kangxi made him commander-in-chief of armies out on the northwestern frontier. And of course, everyone took this as a sign that the 14th prince was favored. Rumors flew, tensions rose, and everyone waited to see if the throne was indeed his destiny. But hold on, there was another player quietly entering the spotlight. The 4th prince, Ying Zhen. Yes, their names sound the same, but they were otherwise quite different. The 4th prince was smart, patient, and knew exactly how to play the long game. Publicly, he projected an image of profound humility, unwavering diligence in his duties, absolute loyalty to his father, and a careful neutrality in the swirling court politics. Privately, though, the 4th prince was anything but passive. He built his influence subtly and methodically. Years earlier, during the second prince's first fall, he had even publicly supported the disgraced crown prince, appearing loyal and brotherly. After the second prince fell for good, the 4th prince recognized his chance. Quietly, he recruited some heavy hitters on his side, including his loyal younger brother, the 13th prince, Ying Xiang, the powerful commander in charge of Beijing's security, Long Keduo, and the influential frontier general, Nian Genyao. Without making a fuss, the 4th prince built an impressive power base, all while keeping up his facade as the obedient son who wasn't after anything at all. But now, the court has split sharply into 2 teams, the faction supporting the 14th prince and the faction supporting the 4th prince. They employed networks of officials and eunuchs as spies, seeking any scraps of information about rivals or their father's intentions. Damaging rumors concerning secret alliances or misconstrued remarks by the emperor were constantly manufactured and circulated to undermine opponents. Financial influences and bribery were used to secure loyalty or information from key figures. But out in the open, these same princes were masters of public appearance, each presenting themselves as the most loyal son. The decade of simmering tension, of whispered plots and veiled threats, reached its peak in December 1722, the moment everyone was waiting for. Kangxi had ruled for over 60 years, finally lay on his deathbed at Changchunyuan in Beijing. At this critical moment, the 14th prince was hundreds of miles away fighting on the frontier. Back in the Forbidden City, the atmosphere was heavy. Palace doors were closed. No one allowed in or out. Then, on December 20th, the moment the entire empire had dreaded and waited for years, finally arrived. Emperor Kangxi passed away. It was in this uncertain atmosphere that Long Keduo made a declaration. And guess what Long Keduo announced? He had Kangxi's final will, naming none other than the fourth prince as the new emperor. With Long Keduo's troops securing the city, the fourth prince ascended the throne as Emperor Yongzheng. But from day one, his reign was clouded in suspicion. People immediately questioned the will's authenticity. Was this a coup? Had Long Keduo and the fourth prince manipulated the dying emperor's final wishes? While we don't have absolute historical proof, the whispers and rumors about a stolen throne have kept historians and drama writers busy for centuries. Yongzheng quickly moved to consolidate his authority. He rapidly elevated loyal supporters, particularly his trusted brother, the 13th prince, Yingxiang, and decisively punished rivals. The 8th prince and the 9th prince were harshly stripped of their imperial status and forced to adopt humiliating new names. Aqina and Cai Sihei, these Manchu terms were intentionally degrading, meaning something like dog or pig, deliberately erasing their imperial dignity. Both princes died under suspicious circumstances soon after being imprisoned in terrible conditions. The influential military leader, 14th Prince Ying Zhen, who had a similarly sounding name to the new emperor, was forced to change his name to Yun Ti. He was quickly recalled, placed under permanent house arrest, and sidelined for the remainder of Yongzhen's reign. Even the scholarly third prince, who had long since stepped back from politics for books, was unable to gain Yongzhen's trust. Eventually, he was stripped of his titles and also placed under house arrest, dying quietly in confinement in 1732. This brutal conclusion highlighted the high stakes involved in imperial succession conflicts, something Yongzhen was determined to prevent from happening again. Having personally experienced the disruptive Nine Princes War, Emperor Yongzhen understood firsthand the dangers of unclear succession. He saw that openly designating a crown prince too early invited rivalries and conspiracies, while leaving the choice open sparked intense factional battles. Yongzhen knew he needed a new system that would ensure stability, protect his chosen heir, and preserve his own absolute authority until death. His solution was the secret designation of the heir, 密见皇储. Under this system, the emperor personally wrote his chosen successor's name on an edict, sealed it securely in a box, and placed it behind the Justice and Honor tablet high in the Qianqing Palace. This placement symbolized the fairness and legitimacy of the decision. An identical document was also created by the emperor, providing a safeguard against tampering with the primary copy. The heir's identity remained a carefully guarded secret throughout the emperor's lifetime. Only after the emperor died would high-ranking officials and princes ceremonially retrieve and open the box, publicly revealing the name inside. The genius of Yongzhen's solution lay in its secrecy. Keeping the chosen heir hidden prevented the formation of dangerous factions and discouraged plots against a known successor. Crucially, it also reinforced the emperor's supreme authority, compelling all potential successors to remain loyal, diligent, and cooperative, hoping they might secretly be the chosen heir. Born directly from Yongzhen's traumatic experiences during the Nine Princes War, this designation system became the Qing dynasty's standard method of succession for over a century. Did Yongzhen's designation system guarantee a permanent stability? For over a century, it successfully prevented open succession conflicts like the Nine Princes War from happening again. The Qianlong, Jiaqing, Daoguang, and Xianfeng emperors each smoothly inherited the throne through this hidden designation method, avoiding factional struggles. However, Yongzhen's system relied entirely on an emperor having an heir to name. Its major flaw emerged in the late 19th century when emperors began dying young without sons, making the secret designation system useless. In these cases, established Qing rules required choosing a successor from the next generation of the imperial descendants. This rule wasn't merely about choosing a suitable emperor, it also preserved ritual continuity, since each new emperor had to become a symbolic son to the predecessor for ancestor worship. These established succession traditions directly clashed with the enormous influence of Empress Dowager Cixi. Cixi rose to become China's behind-the-scenes ruler after orchestrating the 1861 Xingyou coup following Emperor Xianfeng's death. Initially, she ruled as regent for her young son, Emperor Tongzhi, but her direct interference with succession truly began after Tongzhi's death. When Emperor Tongzhi died heirless in 1875, Cixi engineered the succession of her infant nephew, Zai Tian, known as the Guangxu Emperor. This decision blatantly violated Qing tradition, as Guangxu belonged to Tongzhi's own generation, rather than the required younger generation. By ignoring these critical rules, Cixi secured her goal of extending her regency and continuing to rule behind another child emperor. History repeated itself decades later when Emperor Guangxu died without an heir in 1908. His death occurred under highly suspicious circumstances, with evidence strongly suggesting poisoning. Many historians suspect Cixi herself, who was dying at the same time, may have ordered Guangxu's death to prevent him from outliving her and carrying out political reforms she opposed. Again, Yongzhen's secret designation system was irrelevant. From her deathbed, Cixi unilaterally dictated the next succession, selecting Guangxu's infant nephew, Pu Yi. Although Pu Yi was from the correct generation, Cixi completely bypassed traditional consultations, ensuring her faction stayed in control. Through yet another regency, Cixi's repeated manipulation of succession procedures prioritized her personal authority over established dynastic tradition and ritual propriety, by demonstrating that political ambition could override established rules. Her actions severely undermined the Qing throne's legitimacy and moral authority. This contributed significantly to instability, internal division, and loss of faith that characterized the Qing dynasty's final decades. Ultimately, Cixi's maneuvering proved that Yongzhen's carefully designed system, intended to protect stability, could be undone by the ambition of a single powerful individual. Yongzhen's secret box was a fascinating attempt to control the future. But looking at how things played out, can any system truly guarantee a peaceful transfer of power against the tides of human ambition and unexpected events? Could the Qing dynasty have survived longer if Empress Dowager Cixi hadn't manipulated these rules for her own gain? Let me know your thoughts and theories in the comments. And if you enjoyed exploring Qing imperial succession with me today, don't forget to like and subscribe. And if you want to support this channel and help me uncover more fascinating stories from Chinese history, please consider joining my membership and become a Noble Baobab. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.
Stay curious, stay magical.